Hello, my name is Tom Cruise, and no, I'm not the actor. I was just a regular kid born in the wrong zip code, raised in the shadows of poverty in the back streets of a small forgotten town in Mississippi. My story isn't one you'd read in school books. It won't come up on news channels, but it's real, it's raw. It's what life looks like when you're dealt a broken hand and still find the strength to play it with everything you've got. This is the story of how I was wrongly convicted at 23 for a crime I didn't commit. How I spent 12 long years in prison, locked up, cast out, and forgotten by the world. But I didn't break. I didn't quit. I kept walking through pain, through silence, through darkness, because I had a promise to keep. To my mother, to myself, to the life I still believed I could live. I was born in a broken down trailer park near Jackson, Mississippi. Life there wasn't hard, it was hell. My mom worked double shifts at a diner, came home smelling like grease and cigarettes, and still made sure I had something to eat. We didn't have hot water, our lights flickered like a haunted house. I slept on a thin mattress on the floor with a blanket older than me. The roof leaked when it rained, and the wind came through the walls in winter. But I never complained. She was trying. That was enough for me. At 14, I dropped out of school and picked up odd jobs. Washing cars at gas stations, bagging groceries, sweeping up sidewalks, hauling trash. Whatever paid. I gave every penny to my mom. I never asked for anything in return. She'd touch my face, smile at me with tired eyes, and say, "You're my strong boy." But I didn't feel strong. I felt worn out. I felt invisible. I'd wake up before the sun, throw on the same pair of jeans, wash my face with cold water from a bucket, and leave quietly. On my way to work, I'd pass by neighborhoods with kids laughing, dads mowing lawns, families loading groceries into shiny SUVs. I didn't hate them. I just didn't understand how life could be so different, just one street away. Then came the worst day of my life. My mom got sick, real sick. She coughed so hard her ribs shook. We couldn't afford a hospital. She sat on our stained couch, barely able to breathe, her hands trembling. I sat beside her, holding her hand. She whispered, "Don't be sad. You're stronger than you think." That night, she passed away in her sleep, right there in my arms. I was 17. I had nothing left. No family, no backup plan. Just her photograph in my wallet and a heart full of pain. I left the trailer, kissed it goodbye, and told myself I'd find a better life, that I'd make her proud, that I'd never give up. I got a job as a night security guard at a wealthy estate in a gated community just outside Baton Rouge. The house was massive, marble floors, glass doors, cameras everywhere. The couple who owned it, the Dawsons, were rich and private. Mrs. Dawson, Helen, was kind. She'd hand me a cup of coffee during the cold shifts and ask about my day. Mr. Dawson was always glued to his Bluetooth headset, barking orders. Their son was my age, angry, silent, never said a word to me, but I was okay. I had a roof over my head, a cot in the guard shack, and a steady paycheck. I even found a few tattered books in the dumpster and started reading at night. I wanted more from life. I wanted to learn. It was just another morning. I just opened the front gate when I heard the sirens. Police cars, flashing lights, guns drawn. I froze. I raised my hands. Before Before I knew it, I was face down on the driveway, handcuffed, and thrown in the back of a squad car, still in my security uniform. The officers stormed the house. Minutes later, they came out pale, shaken. They told me what I'll never forget. The entire Dawson family had been murdered. All three, found dead in pools of blood. I thought it was a dream. I begged them to believe me. I told them I had nothing to do with it, but none of that mattered. They said the cameras were off, no other witnesses. My fingerprints were in the house. Of course they were. I worked there. They said blood was found on my hands. I told them I tried helping Mrs. Dawson days ago when she cut her finger, but they didn't care. I got a public defender who barely looked up from his notes. At trial, I stood alone. No family, no support, just fear and the weight of a system ready to crush me. The jury looked tired. The judge looked annoyed. My lawyer didn't fight. They called me guilty. Prison was a concrete tomb. My cell was small, cold, and smelled like rust and sweat. My cellmate asked what I did. I said, I didn't do it. He chuckled and said, that's what we all say. But I didn't break. I remembered my mom's voice. Even in the dark, find the light. I found it in the prison library, in the words of authors long gone, in writing my story on scraps of paper, in helping other inmates learn to read and write, in becoming something more than a prisoner. I became a teacher, a mentor, a man with hope. Then one day, a volunteer changed everything. She read my writings, believed in my innocence, showed them to a lawyer who actually cared. He reopened my case. Months turned into years, but finally, they found the truth. The DNA at the crime scene, not mine. It matched a known criminal, a friend of the Dawson son. He'd fled the state, changed his name. 12 years later, I walked out of prison a free man. I had no one waiting, no money, just my story. But I kept walking. I walked out of prison with nothing but a worn out pair of shoes, a prison ID, and my old notebook full of scribbles and stories. No one was waiting for me outside those gates. Not a soul. The sun felt strange. The noise of the world felt too loud. I was free, but also alone. No family, no place to go. Just a deep breath and the road ahead. I walked through the city, not knowing where to turn. My stomach growled, my legs ached. My eyes scanned every face, every window, hoping someone would see me. Not as a convict, but as a man. I stopped by a little corner bakery, the kind with the smell of fresh bread floating out the door. I stepped inside and said softly, "Ma'am, I don't have money. I'm just hungry." The lady behind the counter looked at me, silent for a moment, then handed me a warm roll and a cup of coffee. She said, "Sit down, eat, rest up." I nearly cried. That simple kindness, it broke something open in me. She didn't ask what I'd done. She didn't judge. She just helped. I promised her I'd come back one day and pay her back. She smiled and said, "You already did by staying kind." That night, I slept on the floor of an old church, wrapping my arms around my notebook like it was my last piece of home. In the morning, I walked to a local park and started asking people if they needed help. Most ignored me. Some told me to get lost. But one old man with a broom waved me over. He said, "You got strong arms, son? I could use an extra hand." That man, Mr. Jenkins, became my first real friend since prison. Every day we swept the park together. He showed me how to clean up trash, how to trim bushes, how to take pride in the little things. At the end of each shift, he handed me a sandwich, a bottle of water, and a couple of crumpled bills. I didn't care about the money. I cared that he saw me as a human. He asked one day, "What's in that notebook of yours?" I said, "My life." He asked to read it, and when he did, he just nodded and said, "People need to hear this." He introduced me to a woman who ran a small community center, a place where former inmates, broken families, and lost kids came to find their voice. She asked me to speak, just a small group, maybe 10 people. I was nervous. My hands shook, my voice cracked, but I told them everything about my mother, about prison, about the pain, and about the hope I held on to. When I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. One young man came up and hugged me. Another woman said, "Your story sounds like mine." I thought I was alone. That night, I walked home feeling something new. The community center invited me back, and again, and again. Soon, I was speaking at schools, libraries, even local churches. People started calling me a voice for the forgotten. I didn't do it for money. I did it because I saw people healing through my words. I saw myself healing too. Then one day, a local writer came to one of my talks. She approached me afterward with tears in her eyes and said, "I want to help you write your story." Together, we sat for weeks, filling pages with every memory, every moment. She listened. She didn't rush. She wrote carefully. And when it was done, we called it. A small publisher took a chance on it. They printed 1,000 copies. I held the first one in my hands, and I cried. Not because it was a book, but because it was proof I had survived. That book changed everything. The book spread faster than I could ever imagine. First, it was passed around locally, shared in libraries, book clubs, prisons. Then came emails, messages, letters from people I'd never met. A mother wrote, "My son is locked up. I lost hope, but your story brought it back." Another man said, "I've never been to prison, but I've been through hell. Your book gave me strength." I realized something important. This story wasn't just mine anymore. People started inviting me to speak at events, re-entry programs, schools, criminal justice forums, even city councils. I spoke not as a victim, but as a survivor. I told them, "I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm here to remind you that hope doesn't die in prison cells. It survives in every heartbeat of a man who refuses to give up." I was asked to speak at a university in Chicago. Hundreds of students showed up. After my talk, a young woman hugged me and whispered, "You gave me the courage to chase my dreams." That's when I knew my purpose had outgrown my pain. I started a foundation. We called it Second Light. Its mission? To help people like me, wrongfully convicted, systemically crushed, or just forgotten. We gave them a place to stay, someone to listen, and help writing their stories. I returned to prisons, not as an inmate, but as a mentor. I spoke with young men who'd lost their way. I told them, "You're not your mistakes. You're not your worst day. You're not done." They listened because I wasn't preaching. I was proof. I met survivors of all kinds. Homeless veterans, former addicts, abuse victims. They shared their stories and I shared mine. Together, we built something real. a community of light born from darkness. One night after a speech in Houston, an old man came up to me with trembling hands. He said, "I lost my son to the system. Your story helped me forgive." That moment, worth more than any stage, spotlight, or check. My book got translated. My story got featured in a small documentary. I was invited to speak on podcasts, panels, and eventually, the steps of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Not to protest, not to scream, but to speak. To tell them justice must be real, second chances must exist, and stories like mine should never be repeated. As I stood there, looking out over the crowd, I thought of my mother, of her tired hands, of her soft voice, and I whispered, "I made it, Ma."